foreign media, and many other interactions which were there. So it was an intense week. Themes which you already know: trade, tariffs, AI, digital, all of that. No surprise there in terms of all the key themes which were there. And of course, the big overall theme in terms of where we are in the new world order, from rules-based order to deal-based order. So that was a big discussion topic, as you can appreciate, throughout the Davos interactions. And then finally, I just want to share with you one data point, that there is a group which comes together, which is hosted by the fund and by WEF, and there are about 50-55 people who are thought leaders, who are governors, ex-finance ministers, current finance ministers, and so I went to that group to have discussions there, and I thought it was a very interesting interaction, because one of the data points which came out of there was in 24, when this group came together, and from what I could gather, because this is the first time I was there in my current capacity, that almost there's about 10 to 15% turnover. Otherwise, about 80-85% of the people are the same. So seemingly last year in 24, this group, when they were asked to raise their hands and asked whether 24 is going to be a better year than 23, or worse, or the same. So seemingly last year, about 50% of the people there said 24 for the world overall is going to be a better year compared to 23. This year, although there were some very strong voices in minority, about 80% plus people said 25 is going to be a better year for the world compared to 24. And I thought it was, with all the volatility which is going on in the macro environment, but I do think people also felt, and that's my assessment in terms of what I heard, that how geopolitics to a certain extent is going to go into calmer waters compared to where we have been in 24. So maybe that's a driving factor, and other things. But I just want to share that, because just like creme de la creme of the corporate world is here, it's the creme de la creme. और डॉक्टर ईशर साहब, आप तो वहाँ बहुत जाते रहे होंगे, तो this is creme de la creme, people who are not only thought leaders but movers and shakers of the world economy. So that's Davos. I think with respect to the macro situation, I had the distinct privilege and honor of being hosted by BBC and the general membership about a month back, so I'm not going to go back and mention everything that was talked about there in terms of our macroeconomic stability and all the factors, but a couple of things which were mentioned by the State Bank yesterday after the Monetary Policy Committee. I think the policy rate coming down, the inflationary expectations certainly for January, and therefore further reduction in policy rates, although it's very much the domain of the central bank. But main jo dekhta hu, I look at KIBOR, because that's what matters for you. It's not the policy rate, it's KIBOR. And if KIBOR is now around 11% or thereabouts, and if it's coming down, that's where everyone sort of borrows across consumer and industrial segments, etc. That's one piece. And the other piece, which was also shared yesterday, of us getting to $13 billion of FX reserves, that will essentially take us to almost sort of 3 months of import cover. And I do think that's a very important milestone that we have, because if all goes well, this is a critical trigger for the economy and the sovereign being re-rated to a single B category. There are many other aspects which, of course, the rating agencies consider, but I do think this is one of the critical factors, and we are moving in that direction on the back of very strong remittance flows, very strong sort of IT export services and the diversification of exports, etc. The last thing I just want to mention is that yesterday we received and hosted the senior leadership of Pakistan Business Council with respect to the taxation and the taxation measures, because what we have done, and I mentioned it in December when I was at PBC, and the important thing is actions have to speak louder than the intentions or whatever, right? So I said we will prepone the budget discussion because, as I mentioned at that time, I keep on mentioning that what I saw from the outside, and now you can say within the government, we have a broken budget process, because all of you, including all the forums which come in, we have a lot of time and respect for them, but in the April-May time frame, you spend a lot of time and effort to make your proposals. You spend a lot of time here. We spend a lot of time listening to you. Then when the budget time comes, we do what we need to do in terms of making the math work. And then we have a couple of other months after that in terms of the appeal processes. जो आप में बहुत लोग अमीर हैं वो अखबारों में छापते हैं, जो ज़्यादा नहीं है वो सोशल मीडिया पे करते हैं. But another sort of 2 months of appeals and the appeal process. So about 4 months, the entire country comes to a standstill. For what? Because it's not productive. It's not productive. So abhi, what we did was, and what I mentioned to you, in the first week of January, we got the budget process going. And we requested all the government departments to come back to us with their expenditure views and where they are and what they think they are going to be spending or what they need in the next fiscal year. We have gone to all the forums, including PBC, all the associations, all the chambers, asking for their inputs by early Feb, and also the tariff board, including the government inputs, etc. Because we are now in a medium-term program. We are in a 3-month program, a 3-year program. My sitting here as the IMF rep here, so we know where we are, what we have committed, and we are going to stay firm with those commitments. So we also know what you said in the last budget, and also in other interactions that we have had with all of you and various associations. So my thought process was that what you are going to tell us now versus April, May, maybe there is going to be a 5 to 10% differential. Maybe, because things evolve and all that. But we might as well get all of that input now. And during February, we are going to get into those consultations. I mean, of course, you are here. You made the presentation yesterday. I will be going to various chambers along with the Minister of State and FBR colleagues to various chambers during February, because one thing I also had said, and therefore, आप आ गए हैं इस्लामाबाद तो आप आ गए हैं इस्लामाबाद. But I always used to say, in our neighboring country, when the budget comes, the Mumbai, Delhi नहीं जाता, Delhi, Mumbai आती है. So that is the thought process which I want to ensure that we go to the chambers, we listen to them, and I've been to Sialkot chamber, I've been to other chambers, and we will do that during the month of February, inshallah. So that by the time we come to March or April, we can come back to you. Because that is my intention. We can come back to you with what we can do and what we cannot do. because, we are in a fund program, we have made commitments, and therefore few things might have to be phased in or phased out. Let's put it that way. And with all the cabinet colleagues and everyone that I could share with, because there is good FDI and there's bad FDI. So in that sense, and it's all backed by factual situations and over decades what we have done and how we are going to go forward. But I do think it's a very important part of our roadmap going forward, and that's why I'm mentioning that. Because every FDI which comes in has to have an element of exportable surplus. That, we are upfront with you in those discussions rather than you hearing it during the budget speech, right? Because, and therefore it'll save you a lot of time and effort. It'll save you a lot of anguish later on. But at the same time, we also want to make sure that we get the economy moving as we have, gone for stabilization. But I again want to repeat what I said earlier. There is no automatic switch from stabilization to growth. And we need to be very clear that we fundamentally change the DNA of the economy, that we do not get into trouble the moment we put foot on the pedal and we get into a balance of payment problem and we go running back to the fund at that point in time, because that boom and bust cycle is in our control. And therefore, I always talk about the fund program actually being the Pakistan program, whether it's taxation, whether it's energy, whether it's SOEs, whether it's privatization, whether it's public finance. We need to do it for our own country. The fund and other multilateral institutions are there to help, support, assist, fund us as required. So that's one part of it. The other part of it, which I shared with the leadership of PBC, I just again want to say कि कुछ हम tactical चीज़ें कर रहे हैं, कुछ हम structural चीज़ें कर रहे हैं. So moving the policy out of FBR and putting it under the finance ministry so that they can focus on collections, I do think is going to again be a fundamentally important thing to do, ताकि ये जो discussion होती है कि हर साल आके आप कोई ना कोई चीज़ चेंज कर देते हैं, when the investors, whether they're local investors or foreign investors, they need not only a policy framework, but they need policy continuity, including in the taxation regime. So that is now in implementation. So that's the second thing I want to mention. The third thing I want to mention, and then I'll close so that we can get into sort of Q&A, is क्योंकि in any transformation is people, process, technology. So while what we are doing on the technology side is fine, the people side are also the actions being taken. The process part of it is very important. So एक चीज़ जिस पे हम काम कर रहे हैं, because it keeps on coming back to the salaried class and what and how we can not only do what we need to do in terms of rationalization, that in turn is dependent all other segments stepping up and contributing to the economy, which has been a missing link for decades. But जो simplification में हम कर सकते हैं, जहाँ 70-80% लोग जो हैं salaried class के, उनको ना super tax का issue है, ना CVT का issue है, ना कोई और issue है. वो तो उनका they earn a salary and their tax is deducted at source. So for them, we want to simplify the form in a way that by the time we come to the September time frame or August time frame, कि जब सब लोगों ने अपना टैक्स भरना है, so nirvana would be that none of sort of the 60-70%, if 80% of the salaried class don't have to go to their tax advisors and they don't have to get to their tax lawyers. They do जो बी फाइलर कर रहा है, वो हम क्यों नहीं कर सकते हैं in the FBR? There's no reason why we can't simplify that. Now, that's going to make life tough for the tax advisors and tax lawyers. But as far as I'm concerned, we want to make life simpler for the salaried class in Pakistan, or a dominant part of the salaried class in Pakistan. So that you get onto your screens, you get onto a form, a simple form, you submit. If there's an issue, we'll come back to you. Otherwise, you are done. And, most of the countries, which are sort of advanced or not very advanced, they are all pursuing this, they are all doing it, and I think it's the right thing to do in terms of process simplification, and there are many other things that we need to do. But we also have to make sure that we have some quick wins. We do what we need to do in short term, medium term, long term. So this is just one other thing I just wanted to mention in addition to a very structural thing which we are doing with respect to sort of the policy unit coming into the finance division. With that, I'm going to stop here so that we can get into some Q&A. Thank you.
I think we have some mics somewhere.
यार ये अली खजर साहब इनको सब पहले
खजाना सेनेटर मोहम्मद औरंगजेब का इस्लामाबाद में तकरीब से खिताब। मुल्की मईशत के हवाले से उन्होंने कहा कि मुल्की मईशत दुरुस्त समत में गामजन है, तमाम आशारिये मुस्बत रुझान जाहिर कर रहे हैं। अपने डेवोस के दौरे के हवाले से भी उन्होंने बात की कि दौरा बहुत मुस्बत रहा, तामीरी गुफ्तगू की गई और 2023 की निस्बत रवां साल में मईशत मुस्तहकम हुई। पॉलिसी रेट में कमी से सरमायाकारों का एतमाद मजीद बढ़ेगा। वफाकी वजीर खजाना सेनेटर मोहम्मद औरंगजेब तकरीब से खिताब कर रहे थे और तकरीब से खिताब के दौरान उन्होंने पाकिस्तानी मईशत के हवाले से गुफ्तगू की। कहा कि मुल्की मईशत दुरुस्त समत में गामजन है। ज़र मुबादला के ज़खायर के हवाले से उन्होंने कहा कि ज़खायर बेहतर हुए हैं, तरसीलात ज़र में भी इजाफा हुआ है। हुकूमत पायदार माशी इस्तेहकाम के एजेंडे पर गामजन है। बिजनेस काउंसिल के वफ़द से मुलाकात के हवाले से उन्होंने कहा कि बिजनेस काउंसिल के वफ़द से सैर हासिल और मुफीद गुफ्तगू हुई। आइंदा बजट की तैयारियां शुरू हो गई हैं। पायदार माशी इस्तेहकाम के हुसूल के लिए है। वे आपको बताएं कि वफाकी वजीर खजाना सेनेटर मोहम्मद औरंगजेब तकरीब से इस्लामाबाद में खिताब कर रहे थे। मुल्की मईशत के हवाले से जो भी अहम फैसले किए गए उस हवाले से उन्होंने बात की और मुल्की मईशत के हवाले से उन्होंने कहा कि दुरुस्त
this is my personal view that indeed on the salaried class side there is a disproportionately high burden. This is my personal view. This personal view is also backed by the fact that I put in my own tax returns before end September, whether it was tax or super tax or CVT or whatever. So it's backed by that. But we are here talking about really the sort of the corporate leaders and the management which is sitting here. But the reality is for the various slabs that we have, we do need to think about it. I cannot make any commitment around that. But this is a consideration that we should have, provided other segments come in. Now, the point that you mentioned in terms of wholesale and retailers, I would say, don't look at just Tajir Dost. I can, because that's again a how part of it, one part of it. But I can assure you, in terms of where we want it to be, in terms of wholesaler, retailers and the tax collection, we are absolutely on track. और दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि agriculture income tax, and of course Punjab Assembly cleared it. You heard that the KP Assembly also cleared it. So we have now two other provinces with whom we are working closely, and inshallah we expect we go in that direction as well. और देखें ये कोई चीज़, nothing is going to happen overnight, right? Because it's moving in that direction of getting our tax to GDP in an area where we get into Comity of Nations. And to me, it's a start. 13.5% is a start. Our neighboring country, we always give fantastic examples of that neighboring country, of how competitive their energy is, how other things are that competitive, and why can't we there? Well, because their tax to GDP is now close to 18%. So we need to first do what we need to do as a nation, as a country, and then expect everything else around the competitiveness part of it. तो ये जो social contract की हम बात करते हैं, ये दोनों साइड पे ये चीज़ चलनी होगी. before we start comparing the energy prices, and these are right comparisons, I agree with that. But we also should look at 18% tax to GDP when it comes to that. Ji, your second one.
And you always talk about the basic hygiene. You didn't use the word, but with your liberty, I'm using the word here. You're saying that State Bank has said that by June 2025, we will have a forex reserves of 13 billion. And at the same time, you said that it's going to be close to 3 months of imports. So if we're going to be 3 months of imports, that means we are in the 0 to 1% growth, if like 4.5 billion of growth. And if we are going to move up to which market suggests and which the number suggests to 5.5 billion of import, then it would be little over 2 months. So are we making it the celebration little too early?
नहीं वो we'll see how it goes. आपकी math मेरे से बेहतर है, लेकिन at this point in time the trajectory that we see in terms of current account, because of course the governor talked about the current account discussion yesterday as well, in terms of what was budgeted, what was thought through, and where we think we are going to be there, notwithstanding the increase that we have seen in imports in December. So we'll see how it goes. लेकिन अली मैं आपको बड़ा इसमें क्लियर हूँ कि हमें इसको बड़े एक तरीके से आगे लेकर जाना पड़ेगा. We all want growth. Listen, I come from the corporate sector. सारी ज़िंदगी is all been about growth and profitability. So, but you know, it all has to be at the country level sustainable. And sustainability. I think that's going to be very critical, because the last thing we want to do is to, after spending so much time and energy with all of you, to reverse a cycle, to go back into that rut. That would be most unfortunate.
You mentioned about how you want to see FBR perform. What about the government part, which also has a huge gap? कि वो भी उसके processes भी streamline हो सकते हैं, digitalize हो सकते हैं. Is an effort being made on that, because an efficient government system will actually help everybody in the country?
Yeah, thank you, and well done on your marathon races wherever you have been going. So जो पब्लिक फाइनेंस की आपने बात की है, आई थिंक इट्स वेरी क्रिटिकल. और मैं इट्स अ ह्यूज प्रिविलेज एंड ऑनर टू सी अगेन डॉक्टर इशरत हियर, क्योंकि मैं हर महफिल में इनके बारे में बात करता हूँ, और वो इसलिए करता हूँ क्योंकि इन्होंने जिस मेहनत से द रिपोर्ट दैट ही प्रिपेयर्ड ड्यूरिंग द प्रीवियस एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन इन टर्म्स ऑफ इंस्टीट्यूशनल रिफॉर्म इज़ अ रिपोर्ट वर्थ गोइंग थ्रू and worth considering, and I have looked at that, I've reviewed that, I've looked at it very carefully along with the team that is helping me in the right sizing committee, because a lot of good work had already been done. But then again, it's not the what and why, it's the how part of it. So the only thing that we have done in the last 8 to 10 months is to make it bite size. And of course, things have moved on, they have been evolved. But दो चीज़ें मैं हमेशा, because we are now taking into waves, wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, we are now on wave 4. So we are taking 5 to 6 ministries. In all there were 43 ministries, 400 attached departments. That's what we are dealing with at the federal government. डॉक्टर साहब हो सकता है आपके वक्त उसमें आगे पीछे थोड़ा सा होगा, but
कम कर दिए थे, 365 कर दिए थे.
अच्छा. So, well, we are back to 400 as department during that time period. So what we are doing now is we're taking 5 or 6 ministries, their attached departments, going through the right sizing committee. We ask them to come and present so that no one says कि जी मुझे सुना नहीं गया. And then we take it back into our recommendations, back into cabinet to the Prime Minister. We get these approved and then into the implementation phase. So we are looking at both recommendations and then a wave 1, wave 2 की implementation की हम चल रहे हैं, because ये कह देना कि ये आपने ये कर दिया है वो ज़रूरी नहीं है कि वो हो गया हो, तो उसको हम implementation की तरफ ही. So number of ministries उसमें जो merge हुई हैं, कुछ abolish हुई हैं. So we are monitoring that. We have announced about that 150,000 posts are going to be abolished, which are vacant. Roughly 30,000 plus is already been done. So इसको हम सिर्फ announcement की तरफ नहीं, इसको monitor भी कर रहे हैं, because I do think it's very critical as we go forward in terms of right sizing. And then there are a number of things which are devolved subjects and therefore should go to the provinces. A few things should certainly be wrapped up, because issue ये है कि everyone who comes in, especially from the attached departments, 30 साल से कुछ नहीं का हुआ, लेकिन वो कहते हैं जी अगले 6 महीने दे दें. तो अगले 6 महीने में क्या मिरेकल हो जाना है कि हम आपको 6 महीने दें. So some of these are actually tough discussions. But I have to say the cabinet colleagues have been very helpful in terms of getting this discussion forward. So that's one part of it. The second is the pension. So वो July 1 से जो हमने किया और फिर Jan 1 को हमने उसकी announcement भी कर दी है, that all new colleagues joining in the civil bureaucracy are now on defined contribution. Not easy to do, और उसमें फिर और भी pension की reforms थी या rules थे कि कितनी generations में जा सकता है और क्या चीज़ें हो सकती हैं. A lot of that has been dispensed away. So what we have done is we have stopped the bleeding. We still have to deal with the stock. So that's the second thing. Debt servicing, given the policy rate which has come down, has already helped us in terms of giving us fiscal space. वो inshallah इस साल भी है, and if all goes well, it should allow us more fiscal space next year as well. So I think these are a few things which we are doing at the federal level. And then the last thing I want to mention is the National Fiscal Pact, where the idea is to, and I'm very again grateful to all the chief ministers that they have agreed on that National Fiscal Pact in terms of optimizing revenue in the provinces. There's an expenditure sharing discussion which is underway right now, and then of course overall governance. Right, because there's KYC, AML, sanctions, transaction monitoring with respect to FATF and other things. We don't want to ever go into a difficult situation again on that front. So public finance is a major discussion. SOEs and the privatization. We have had initial hitches. We are very committed that we are going to take things back into the private sector. So PIA ka हमने relaunch कर दिया है again the process, and hopefully this time around with some of the fiscal things which have now been adjusted in conjunction with the fund, and also the routes coming back in. We are very hopeful कि inshallah we'll take it to the finishing line. जी.
कमिटमेंट्स भी है आईएमएफ के साथ.
आप कहाँ से हैं?
ताहिर अमीन बिजनेस रिकॉर्डर से सर.
जी.
ताहिर अमीन बिजनेस रिकॉर्डर से.
जी बताइए जी.
तो यही पूछना था सर कि क्या आने वाला बजट उसको हम एज ए रेडीमेड एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे हैं आईएमएफ से, या जो आप दूसरी साइड से प्रपोजल भी मांग रहे हैं तो उसको कुछ एकोमोडेट भी करेंगे, या एक रेडीमेड बजट होगा आईएमएफ की तरफ से?
नहीं, देखें, मुझे रेडीमेड का तो नहीं पता कि रेडीमेड क्या चीज़ होती है, लेकिन मकसद ही ये है कि ये जो हमने इसको बजट का जो प्रोसेस है उसको हम पहले लेकर आए हैं ताकि डिटेल में डिस्कशन हो सके, क्योंकि अप्रैल मई में जब हम जाते हैं फिर उस वक्त इतना वक्त नहीं होता कि हम डिस्कशन का वक्त नहीं होता. तो इस दफ़ा हमारी पूरी कोशिश है कि, क्योंकि मैंने जैसे कहा कि प्रपोजल्स जो आने हैं वो कोई ऐसे प्रपोजल्स नहीं आने हैं जो सडनली आउट ऑफ द ब्लू कोई चीज़ आ जाएगी. तो अगर वो प्रपोजल्स आ जाएं, हम उनको सिमुलेट कर लें और फिर भी गो बैक एंड सिट डाउन विद ऑल द बिजनेसेस कि हम कौन सी चीज़ें हैं जो इस बजट में अकोमोडेट कर सकते हैं, कौन सी चीज़ें हैं जो आगे जाके we'll have to phase in, और कौन सी चीज़ें हैं which do not make sense, because government will also take a stance on this कि कुछ चीज़ें हैं जहां हम सहूलत ज़रूर पैदा करेंगे, लेकिन जो डॉक्यूमेंटेशन ऑफ द इकॉनमी है, 9.7 trillion rupees cash in circulation, these are a few things which we are not going to compromise on. So इसमें कुछ ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जिसमें we have to stay the course. तो ज़रूरी नहीं है कि इस बजट की प्रीपोनिंग का मतलब है कि हर चीज़ हम मान जाएंगे या हर चीज़ मान सकते हैं. It's not only about the fund, but also what we need to think कि how do we put country in a sustainable path of growth as we go forward. जी श्री साहब. अच्छा जी, once again, listen, it's always great to be here. और एज ए सेड कि पाकिस्तान बिजनेस काउंसिल आपकी स्ट्रेंथ ये है कि जो भी आप करते हैं, जो आप सोचते हैं, जो हमें भेजते हैं, दैट्स रिसर्च बेस्ड एंड इट्स नॉट अबाउट इमोशंस, इट्स नॉट अबाउट व्हाट यू हैव थॉट अबाउट लास्ट नाइट. मैंने अभी जो FDI पे आपका जो पेपर है उस पे I've really appreciated that thought process. So I wish you well over the next couple of days. I'm sure you'll have a lot of constructive engagements, inshallah, and look forward to wrapping it up with you on Thursday when hopefully you'll meet the Prime Minister as well. Thank you.